Hi guys, welcome back to another video and to the Jason Isbell Telecaster. And what I'll do if you're new here is I'll link to the first video we did with this about 18 months ago. And we did a few subtle modifications, went over the spec and everything else as well. So check that one out first if you haven't already. And in the meantime, we'll remind ourselves how this thing sounds, this time through the Fender Super Reverb. And then I'll come back and sort of talk about a few things I didn't mention the first time round, kind of how this guitar's stood up for the last 18 months and, whether or not I still like it as much as I did then. So I'll see you in a minute. So there you go then. That's a sort of refresher on how this thing sounded. So one of the first things I kind of wanted to mention, coming back to this guitar, is straight away, because I think of its lightness, it's such a nice and light guitar, and perhaps the nitro finish and things like that, it's just one of them guitars where when you put your hand around it and just play, it rings and rings and rings, and just it feels alive. And that is like, when you're sort of checking out a guitar for the first time, that is the one thing that will tell you instantly, like, you know, oh, this thing's got life to it, you know, it's got something about it. And straight away I had that sort of connection with it again, you know, even after all this time. And like I said, I think that's down a lot to do with the nitro and the lightness. And with Mexican guitars, you know, the nice, like my Strat just over there, you know, that's a 2010 classic series, and I had the blue one before, if you remember that one. And stunning guitars, you know, the real rosewood, real nice pickups, amazing guitars. But the one thing that is common with those is they're very heavy. My Sonic Blue one was almost £10. You know, that's a Stratocaster at £10. And, you know, that's not a problem we've got here. Although it's a Mexican classic reissue sort of thing, it's not carrying that weight, which is, you know, definitely a big plus. Now, I think it's probably cool to have a little look at the finish a bit closer. Because remember, this is a Mexican guitar, so if we go onto the body here, and you got things like, you know, the little dinks here and stuff like that, and they all look, you know, nice enough. You know, it's not too bad, but where you've got like the wear there, and a good example, you know, things like that on the back, you know, that's not kind of knocking on the doors of the Fender custom shop, say. But it is nicer than what you get on, you know, Relic budget instruments. And like I keep saying, with that nitro finish, I think it works just fine. What is very close to custom shop though, if I can get you to see this, is every single bit of wear on the fingerboard, on the edges and stuff, has its own, if I show you this way, might be a bit better. Yeah, maybe you can see that. It kind of has its own unique wear on each fret as you go down, and then on the back of the neck as well. There's no kind of hard sanding, but hopefully you can see how it kind of changes colour a little bit. The finish varies in thickness, and that feels, you know, amazing. Like, that is not a million miles away from a custom shop at all. And combined with this rosewood, this guitar has been very well looked after by its owner, but nonetheless, that rosewood is just, you know, it doesn't get a great deal better than that. The pore in it is nice and open as well. And that's something I did see was quite common on the Isbell model. This is a 2021 era model. But I have seen some 2023 ones in shops this year, you know, hanging on the wall. And the rosewood, you know, is definitely a lower grade to that. And someone in the comments of a photo of this guitar said they had a 2023 model and actually their rosewood was fine. So I guess it comes down to the age old, you know, if you are looking for this guitar and it piques your interest, don't just buy one online blind, you know, with a stock image. Try and get actual photos, because the character of that rosewood is part of what draws, you know, would draw me to this particular guitar. And someone also asked about how I've got this set up. So we'll go over that, you know, very briefly. All my tools are at my bench, but I've at least got a little bit of measuring here. So in fairness, the guitar is pretty much exactly how we left it on the first video. In terms of the neck relief, you know, it's pretty much exactly where I left it. Maybe marginally more, because the string gauge has gone up half a gauge since then. But absolutely fine. And to be fair, with a 7¼ inch radius on the Fender scale length, I find that you can get away with a touch more relief than maybe you'd have on a Les Paul or something like that. So that's absolutely fine. In terms of string action, so if you're working in millimeters from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string, on the low side we've got just under 2 millimeters. I would say probably 2 millimeters bang on, to be fair. And on the high side of the 12th fret, between 1.5 and 2 millimeters. So, you know, pretty standard kind of setup. The action's not crazy low, but it's, you know, it's not uncomfortable in any way. And even with that vintage radius, if we hear the bends, it's never going to fret out, you know. And on the nut height there as well, I remember taking the nut down slightly, and that's still absolutely perfect. You know, it's literally about the width of an A4 piece of paper between the top of the fret and the string on the nut height. So, you know, no issues whatsoever there. So, do I still think this guitar is like the best new telly, you know, in terms of pound for pound value that you can get? And I really think it is for me, because I'm a massive fan of good rosewood. I really like these pickups, like I said in the first video, you know. To me, they're very low output, but you've got very classic bridge sounds, very classic in-between sounds, but on the neck, for me, it is very much so more Stratocaster sort of thing. So sound-wise, it's like, you know, Fender's greatest hits of a guitar. You know, you've got the Strat neck, telly middle, telly bridge, and it just works. And the way this was modified in the first video, we did change the saddles, we changed the pickguard and the switch tip, very subtle things, but I would do exactly this. You know, for me, this is just pretty much, other than the old Keith Richards butterscotch with a humbucker in the neck, it's perfect Telecaster kind of territory. I do have one concern though, and this is only going to apply to people who really don't like vintage narrow fret wire. You know, most people, they don't mind it. I really don't like it. And if you read the spec sheets of this guitar, you know, online where it says the specs, it will just say Fender narrow tool, and it won't give you measurements. It will just be a generic vintage narrow tool, something like that. And like I said, I am stupidly fussy with fret wire. It's just something I've developed over time, you know, preferences sort of thing. And this guitar, you know, being as it is, it's never had significant fretwork or anything. It plays fine, despite that specification. You know, I have no problem with these frets at all. I really like them. But since I reviewed this guitar first time round, I've worked on, I don't even know how many Fenders, you know, on the workbench, well over 100 Fenders. And I know that the fret wire, compared to, say, Jescar fret wire, wears quicker. And I'm the sort of person who does put wear on guitars. You know, I need to develop a lighter touch or something, because over the course of, say, a year, if I start off with a new guitar, I'll see fret wear in that year. And with Fenders, even more so. And I do feel that these frets, for my taste, wouldn't, you know, once I'd started to put a year, 18 months of wear on them, I don't think there's enough meat on the bone to kind of get away with doing a fret level and re-crown, and then me not thinking they feel too small. So that, for me, you know, from a longevity point of view, I think it kind of makes me, rather than say 10 out of 10, you know, 9 out of 10. This guitar with medium jumbos, that's a 10 out of 10. And like I said, the only reason why I'm mentioning it now is because somebody that sees this might similarly hate really small vintage frets, and they want, you know, a nice medium jumbo or something. So I don't think this guitar, if that's how you feel, would survive much of a, you know, a fret level re-crown sort of thing. So you might find that you'd be changing them pretty quick. And that is just a peripheral concern that I just felt was worth kind of bringing up, because it's about the only thing I can, you know, put a question mark on sort of thing. I just think I still think that in terms of brand new guitars, you know, yes, it is an expensive made in Mexico Fender, to be fair. But for me, it gets you so close to like the custom shop tellies kind of thing. Like, you can't get a player series like this. You know, even the American standards and stuff like that. Like, to me, these pickups sound better. This finish is nicer. The rosewood that I've been seeing on these, particularly on this era model, seems better. And all those things then, when you kind of add them all up, just add up to it just being the best, I think. You know, the best right now. So that is kind of our little revisit of the Jason Isbell Telecaster. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you again very, very soon.